everybody. I just want to welcome you all to another awesome JSMN. Clearly, for those of you who've been around in this venue before, they kind of changed things up a little bit, which is fun. It's so cool. I'm going to clear this out, and we can get things going. How does that sound? Everybody get pizza for the most part? Awesome. Thank you. It's a packed house, and it's super exciting. Thanks, everyone, for being here. So a couple things I want to talk about real quick. First, let's slide over here. So one of our Lightning Talk presenters this afternoon is going to have like an interactive coding portion. So if you brought your laptop, now would be an awesome time to go snag that Wi-Fi password, make sure you're on the network, so you can participate in that. That's going to be super awesome. Sound good? Awesome. We'd also, let's see, a couple of announcements we want to go through. Before I say anything further, some of you might remember that we put out a call for organizers a couple months ago. Things with that got a little wild given the weather last month and schedules and brain things and whatnot. Life happened, but it is my solemn obligation and honor. I should stop saying words. But yes, to mention that the board has voted in 2 new organizers, and they're at the back right there. Brian Mitchell and Tamara Temple. Thanks to everybody who applied. It was a really difficult decision, but we appreciated everybody who reached out. And if you're not Brian and Tamara and you applied, there's absolutely 100% still room for you to help make this event a thing. And clearly, we need all the help we can get, so we appreciate you. And we'll be talking to you momentarily about how that can look, because we're really excited. We're really excited for this. Cool. With that out of the way, I also like to thank our sponsors. For that, I'm going to sit down to the computer again. We have some sponsors. One of which is Track.js. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to start with Space 150 because Space 150 is the place where we are. They've been super kind and accommodating to us during their renovation, during this bonkers weather we've been having. Is James in the house? I don't see James right now. James had some announcements he wanted to share with you all, but we'll let him come in when he comes in. We'll handle that when he gets here. So Space 150 is this place. It is a digital advertising agency with offices here in New York and in Venice, California. And they work with some awesome clients, including Buffalo Wild Wings, Nike, American Express, Cambria, you name it. And I see James at the back there. Space is clearly an awesome place both to work and a place that's really been accommodating to us for a while now as our event host. We thank them again for their support. Can we get a round of applause for Space? Thanks. James, you want to come on up? Sure. Awesome. So I know, James, you had some opportunities you wanted to share with folks. I'll pull up the website if that would help.
Well, welcome to Space. I just wanted to say real quickly that we have internship openings right now. So if you know anyone, I'm looking out in the crowd, probably not a lot of intern candidates, but if you know students or not students that might be looking for an internship, we are hiring 2 software engineering internships. We have offices in Venice, California, as well as New York. So it's not just Minneapolis, but the bulk of all of our software engineers are here in Minneapolis. So if you know anyone, please send referrals. You can go to, it's actually a site that's launching Friday, but it's out, lifewithout.space150.com.
Cool. I'll put that up in the Slack to make sure everyone has access to that. Hey James. Let's say folks were changing careers and might not have been a software engineer, but have completed education towards becoming a software engineer. Would the internship be a good fit for them?
Yeah.
Awesome.
React Native tonight?
Absolutely. Yeah, you bet.
Nice, nice. We do a ton of React here, both React Native, but we work with a lot of different technologies: physical, digital installations, websites, apps, a ton of stuff. It looks like it. No, no. I think it's just a big animated GIF background.
Right on.
Question. Is having an Instagram account mandatory? It looks like that Instagram is required.
It is, yeah. You'll see it's a little bit of an experience on Friday. So I would say if you don't have an Instagram account, create one for Friday, navigate through the thing, get your code, apply. Yeah.
I can also personally vouch for the Space 50 internship. I was an intern at Space, and it is a magnificent experience. These folks make it a really awesome thing. So if you're considering applying, you should absolutely do it.
I think we did a Snapchat thing the year that
you sure did.
You applied. So.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's kind of got a Bandersnatch theme to it. If anyone's seen the Black Mirror thing, a little bit of a teaser on what it'll be. So cool. All right. Well, welcome everyone.
Thanks, James. We'd also like to thank our some of our other sponsors, Track.js. Track.js does JavaScript error tracking. They're based right here in Stillwater, Minnesota, which is, I guess, not where we physically are right now, but it's a friend of ours, right? And Todd's not here tonight, but Todd has been around and a massive supporter of this group, founder of Track.js, and we appreciate Track.js's continued support. We'd also like to thank Twilio. I know a number of folks here might have run into Twilio or heard of Twilio, and if you haven't, that's all right, because we're about to talk about it right now. Some of you might have seen on the signs, we tried something kind of new that we've been sitting on for a little while, where there's actually, so Twilio provides communication APIs where you can hook up like a phone number or something to your web application, and you can send SMS messages, like text messages, or make phone calls from your applications. They make it really easy and relatively inexpensive to do so. We actually use Twilio this time around. So you see on the signs we have outdoors, there's a phone number you can call, or you can text. Sorry, I should be specific. You can text, and then it alerts some of us who are watching the Slack channel to make sure you all get the help you need. So if you have questions about the building, anything like that, you can text that number, and that's all powered by Twilio. Isn't that fun? Yay, Twilio. I don't know if we have anyone from Twilio here tonight. We usually don't, but we thank them for their support nonetheless. We'd also like to thank C.H. Robinson, which I did not mean to Google. I meant to go to their website. C.H. Robinson is an international third-party logistics firm based in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. It has a substantial engineering presence here. In fact, they have an engineering blog, don't they, Brian?
They sure do.
Would you be willing to remind me of the engineering blog's web address?
Engineering.chrobinson.com.
I should have guessed that. Robinson.com. The engineering team here is really great. And if you haven't run into somebody from CHR, I know Brian's at CHR. Do you want to say anything special? CHR is super great, and we thank them as well for their support. Let me double check that I have not messed up any sponsors. Frontend Masters. Oh my God. Mark, if you're watching this, I apologize. But now I unapologize because I'm going to talk about Frontend Masters. Frontend Masters is a provider of high-quality online training for developers. You can see a list of the technologies that they have featured right now on here. Frontend Masters is a really awesome community supporter because in addition to running this program and supporting this group, they have in-person trainings that are available free of charge if you want to go down to the RBC building downtown, which is personally one of my favorite buildings, just notwithstanding. Really great architecture. But you get to learn from people who are Vue core team members, React core team members, maintainers of popular open source libraries. It's really awesome. And you can see them and ask questions of them, and it's really irreplaceable, and that's all a small local team that puts that on. And we usually post about that. I know Mark sent an email to the list about it, but if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to us, and we can help direct you there. Frontend Masters, again, thank you for your support. We'd also, let's see, we'd also like to thank Doherty Consulting, which is a consulting firm in town here that's been a supporter of JSMN for a while as well. That concludes the sponsor read portion. Another thing I want to mention here, there we go. All of JSMN's meetup events, events of any sort, and online communities are kind of subject to this code of conduct here. And our code of conduct is aimed at making sure that these events are safe places where people can participate and free of harassment. And we know that sometimes folks need to make reports for code of conduct concerns. And if so, the phone number on the signs, it can be a place to make that confidentially. You can also reach out individually to an organizer or email us at jsmn, just like javascriptmn@gmail.com. We have a slide where you can capture that. And I haven't been using the slide deck because it's a little bit out of date, but for this particular slide, I do want to show it because it does have our contact information in there. If you have any questions about this, feel free to talk to one of the organizers. We take this extremely seriously, so we want to make sure we mention it at every event. Now we'll open it up to the floor for announcements real briefly. If anyone is looking for work, has an event, or has positions open that they'd like help filling, now's the time to raise your hand, and we'll go through it real quick. We have time for a couple. Casey?
Hi, my name's Casey. I'm a React Native developer looking for work. I just got my first app published on Google Play. Check it out. It's Woodland Making Big Pizza for anyone that uses Android. Hopefully we'll get it up on the App Store soon. I would expect anyone that has anything else to talk about.
Right on. Thanks, Casey. Anybody else? I apologize. I'm just going to do. Yeah, go for it.
Hey everybody, my name is Dick. I am currently looking for product owner and product manager positions. So if you're a small to medium-sized company, or even large, and you've got like a cool project, I'd love to have a conversation with you afterwards. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Just checking the time here. Alrighty. Anybody else? Yes, Ian.
This is much smaller scale, but does anybody have a MagSafe 2 charger that I could borrow?
I got one right up here, but you have to give a talk, buddy. That's a rifle pass. Sarah?
I've got an announcement for Minneapolis Junior Devs. We have an event coming up. We are a monthly meetup here in town, supporting and encouraging the aspiring junior devs. If you identify that way, want to help support them, you can come. We are the second Tuesday of the month. Every month, thank you. Next month's talk, we have tickets released this week, which they are still out. Normally by the time JavaScript comes around, we are sold out, but we do still have tickets. The topic, as you can see, is JavaScript libraries I have known and loved or hated by our very own Sarah Rose Battles. We're really excited to hear it. Yes. You can register here. Information about our event is there. Joining our Slack channel, what have you, you can find at our website. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Sarah. Awesome. I know we had a couple more hands. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Jason Soon. My specialty is Ruby on Rails, and I'm looking for a software engineering position in that. Check out my websites, rubyonracetracks.com and legacyrailsapps.com.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Let's see. Any other hands raised? I don't see any. So I'll just say a couple more things. First, if this is your first JSMN event, welcome. It's super awesome that you're here. Please introduce yourself to me and the other board members if you wish, and anyone else, because we're all here to support one another, and it's going to be awesome to meet you. Feel free to say hi. If you are interested in speaking at a JSMN event, also feel free to reach out to an organizer, because that's the way that we know that you're speaking. We can get you up here, so that I'm not up here as much, which would be great. Other than that, I think I've definitely overstayed my welcome. it's time to bring up our first Let You Talk speaker, who happens to be to my left here. Hi. Go for it, Lemon.
Thank you.
Can we get a welcome for Lemon?
The problem is that was bad stagecraft here because you're going to need to have a couple minutes.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Pump that thing out.
That's
so.
what I get for not checking with you.
Let's all just pause
and see that. Yeah, this is fun.
It's
It's a great song.
Yeah, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Is he really?
Yeah, he is.
He should be.
Sure. I mean, yeah, if Gene Simmons is going to be in there, then let's open up the gates to literally everybody.
Not Jesus.
No, not Gene Simmons. All right. Just about got this thing set up. This is genuinely a super impressive meetup turnout for, what is it, 6 degrees out?
Not that cold.
No?
There
There we go.
It was way colder last month.
Well, yeah. Sweet.
Ooh, Windows.
So I couldn't actually find a vector of the JSMN.
We've got it on GitHub now.
Okay, so I made one and I put it where we all are. But I don't know. I feel like you were just trying to be equitable about just giving the JS to everybody.
There's a long and storied history there, but we can talk about it later. That's another one to talk.
Because legally, I mean, the JS is in the bottom right corner. Just saying.
Yeah,
Just saying. Hi. I got 2 things. First of all, I want to give you.
You're saying that there's a logo on the live stream right now that has it in the middle.
Yeah,
So as you're
yeah.
saying that, next to your head right now is another logo.
Oh my God, Inception. Recursive logo, and that's got to be up here for a second. While I got 2 things I want to talk to you about because first of them is I have a ridiculously expensive thing to give away. Is anyone here familiar with NDC, the NDC conferences? NDC, I think, is one of those acronyms like PHP that no longer is an acronym that actually means anything. But it at one point stood for Norwegian Developers Conference. A conference that started in Norway, and then they expanded out. There's one in London and Porto, which is where a bunch of people are right now, which makes me jealous. This is their 2nd year in Minnesota. So I got right here. This is the website for NDC Minnesota. We got 50 the week of 6th to 9th of May. 58 speakers speaking at this thing. The last 2 days of the conference, and then before that is some days of workshops. And about those speakers, I got some experts there. Jeff Strauss, who is a lawyer, is doing a talk about IPs and the law. Jennifer Estrada has a really good thing on ECMA 6. And then Kamran Ayub, has a thing on React and GraphQL. Also, Troy Hunt. I said Troy Hunt, there we go. There's some testifying in front of Congress. Troy Hunt, creator of Have I Been Pwned, is doing that as well as the Hack Yourself First workshop. Katie Shimizu has a thing on Azure functions. And I'm actually really excited about Ashley's because this is specifically a thing about just JavaScript without frameworks or literally anything. It's just vanilla JavaScript, which I think is very cool. There's one more expert I want to talk about, which is me. But yeah, so 56 different speakers, 58, 56, one of those 2. There's also the 11 workshops. Here's some of them. There's Vue, Docker, machine learning, hacking, UX design, RESTful APIs, design patterns. Also, this year specifically, the after party is officially PubConf. PubConf is, if you haven't been, super duper fun. It's a bunch of very professional web developers getting very drunk and then having essentially a comedy competition where they're doing a satirical talk about the thing that they do. a machine learning expert that had a job, or did a 5-minute talk about how, yes, robots are going to take over your job because you are bad at your job. Bug count's super duper fun, and that is also included in the NDC package. And it's a $1,600 value in the back, right there, right back behind that guy right there. I got a Tupperware container, and I have been asked to give away 1 ticket. So what I would love you to do is at some point, go ahead and just, I got pens, I got slips of paper, put your name on a slip of paper, put that thing in the container, and then I'll do a drawing at the end, and I'll, whatever. You don't need to put contact information, I'll just find you. No, I will. I will. You ever heard of big data? It's real, baby. Bezos knows where you're at.
There will be a break before the main presentation where everyone go fill that out.
Yeah. So please do fill in, and I'm going to give one person's contact information to the people at NDC, and then you get in. And genuinely, like, it was something that I was able to speak at last year, and it was literally life-changing for me. It did so much. So I really do like NDC. So please do stick around for that drawing. That's not my lightning talk. That was just something that, here's the thing. I was asked to do that at the last minute, and I only now realized that at this point, now here's the next slide. Here's the next slide, was me saying, hi. I haven't been talking for minutes. No, let's start over. Anyway, hi, my name's Lemon, and I make websites. I'm sure I'm in the same boat as a number of you in that. But I do make websites, and I do not make apps. That is just not something I do. That's not something that I've personally been interested in. Mike Emo is going to be up here giving the feature presentation about React Native, which is a very cool thing for making apps. That's not what this specific thing is about. This is about making websites, but we can make apps at the same time because we can make progressive web apps. Are a lot of people familiar with this? Some, maybe, yes, no, yes, yes. Progressive web apps are essentially a spec that has gone through a couple rounds. Google was really the first ones to start pushing the spec forward, who then had to fight with their own team because Android had an interest in progressive web apps not being a thing. Firefox very quickly got on board. Microsoft is now fully on board. Microsoft, in fact, that thing where the Microsoft Store, like you go and you into the Microsoft Store and you find Candy Crush or whatever, their store, as a way to keep that thing hydrated and populated, Microsoft will now actually take your progressive web apps and just shove them through the store. All you have to do is basically give them the URL and a sheet, and then they'll say, okay, that's an app, you're fine, we're going to throw Edge around this, and now you're in the store. Google Play actually is now also doing the same thing. Google Play will allow progressive web apps into their store. It's more of a process than the Microsoft one, but it's very cool. And that means that Safari is finally going to be getting on board with progressive web apps. They're not there, they're not there, they're not there, but they're going to be there. Kicking and screaming, they are going to be in the progressive web app world. So what is a PWA? Well, okay, a PWA can actually be lots of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be one thing or the other. It's essentially building a website with just additional abilities, stuff that you don't necessarily have in a traditional website. So if we're going to talk about what is a PWA, it could potentially be a lot of things. But we'd have the ability to make it installable. You can go to the website, get a little banner. Hey, do you want to install this to your phone? Yes. That's now on your home screen, runs like an app. We can have it work offline, which is something that, talked about this at Minibar. I made a website called party.party. And it's literally just a button that helps you party. So I don't know if you can see exactly what's going on there, but it's just a button that helps you party. And then And then if you get enough parties in there, you get some Venga Boys. So I was working on that. Oops, well, that's going to keep making noise. So I was working on that, and I got an email from somebody, and she said, you know, I was actually camping, and I needed to have a party, but I didn't have 3G access. You need to make it so that I can have a party without internet. You're absolutely right. I need to do that. And I did exactly that. So party is available offline. Push notifications, you can send those things through. Manage caching, so we can say, you know, cache this, don't cache this thing for this specific piece of time. I can run Chromeless. Anything that you would do install to your phone doesn't have the address bar. It just looks like an app. And native sharing, where you can do the thing where you, like, you know, click a link and then you can just, rather than like copy to clipboard, you can go click and then like share to Hangouts or Twitter or whatever the hell. So that's interesting. What do you need for this? You actually only need 3 things. 3 things and you're genuinely up and running. One of the other cool things about PWAs is that there's not really that much involved. First of all, you need an HTTPS connection. If you don't have an HTTPS connection, if you don't have a secure socket layer, it's not going to happen. So that happens first. And you know, you can do that through whatever means you like. Let's Encrypt, always a favorite option. I kind of don't mind paying a little bit for the cert. I know that's supposed to be a naughty thing to say, but you know, $8 a year to Namecheap is fine for me for a cert. You're going to need HTTPS. Then you're going to need a manifest.json file and a serviceworker.js. I'm going to show you what those things look like. The manifest.json, really just a simple bit of instructions. What we're doing here, this is a website that I made called Damndog, which is the WikiHow guessing game. It's fun, you should play it. But anyway, so we've just got some description of like what this looks like, what do I want to display it like, the scope so that I can scope specific URLs to the app and scope other URLs out of that. A theme color for like that splash screen that comes up, background color, and then some icons in there. That's really all there is. Just a simple bit of instructions. Hey, if somebody installs this, here's how I'd like this to look. And then the other thing, a little bit more complicated, but that's your service worker. Now this is one example of a service worker. There's lots more examples. But all we're doing here in this service worker is we're saying, okay, so when somebody installs the app, I want you to cache index.html, maybe some other files would go in there, maybe your CSS or maybe whatever else you might want there. I just want you to cache this specific file, and there you go. Save that. And that's outside of a browser cache. Browser cache, you don't know what's happening. You can say what you would prefer to happen, but you don't know what's happening. If somebody's got your progressive web app on your phone, their cache is under your control. You're holding on to their file. And then you got a little bit of work you're going to do into the index.html. Essentially, just a little bit of JavaScript to say, hey, can this person install Service Worker, and do they have it? If not, you know, go ahead and run that Service Worker JS. If they already have it, don't worry about it. We're good. And then as a result, we've kind of changed how the user is interacting with that site. What used to happen is someone would go to a site, and the browser says, okay, so what files do I have in cache? I'm going to grab those first, and then any files that I'm missing, or any files that are now rendered as expired, I'm going to go to the internet and find those files. What's happening instead, and this is really the major difference, is that we're saying the browser goes to the service worker first, before any other HTTP request. The first thing it does is it goes to the service worker and says, what do I do now? What do I do? This person wants to visit this website. How do I handle this? And the service worker itself can give the instructions of, I want you to go to the internet for this, but I want you to pull from local storage for this, and I want you to route through this. And so you can do things where, for example, like if you've got like a shaky like 2G connection and it's pretty bad, rather than letting that router or the domain try to resolve, you just give them something else. You can do a whole bunch of things. You can also, for example, you know, take a command, throw that command into local storage, and then say, okay, I'm going to put that in local storage. I'm going to keep pinging this URL, and as soon as I actually do get the URL, I'm going to throw that thing through. You take that control away from the usual thing. And that's the overview. So there's a couple places to go. This is Microsoft's, and this is definitely the easiest way to start. PWA Builder is pretty pretty reasonably made for very, very simple PWAs. All you do is you say, here's my URL. It's going to work better if it's static, but if it's PHP, that's all right. So you say, here's my URL, and then it's going to go through. I mean, I can show you. Oh, never mind. Because this talk is not a PWA. So that's not going to work. Oh, and also I closed that window. Okay, well, that's okay. So if you go to the PWA builder, and you basically give that thing the URL, it's going to generate for you the service worker.json. It's going to also generate the manifest.json and the service worker, and then you're going to go from there. It's kind of drag and drop. Oh, there. Okay. Service workies. This is the same guy, Dave Geddes, who did a game called Flexbox Zombies, and a couple of other really, really, really intensely cool video games based on learning HTML skills. This is in development. It's not finished yet, but it is very cool. It's essentially a role-playing game where you've got this sort of ancient society, and they're making service workers. It's a really neat place to kind of. Until this game, I didn't quite understand some of the fundamental concepts, so I do recommend that one. Mozilla has one called Service Workers. Not going to click on that because it didn't work last time, but that has a bunch of recipes. So in order to build that service worker, if you want to do, again, things like web push or staggered caching or whatever, it's got a whole bunch of different recipes for just little things that you can do with your service worker. And then finally, this is one that I found very recently, PWI Fire. Two people, a guy from Kenya and a woman from Poland, and they just got together and they just started to say, well, what's possible with the PWA? And so they've kind of outsourced some of the stuff and have thrown a bunch of these ideas out into the community and are just kind of working on, does this work in a PWA? And a lot of it's really, really neat. So those are places to actually find out how to build a PWA, because this is a lightning talk, so I don't want to go through that.
Thank you, Lemon. Don't forget your phone. That's very important. Cool. Next thing, we're going to invite up our second lightning talk speaker. Simon, want to come on up? I think we've got an HDMI cable for you here. If you need an adapter, we've got one here. Oh, perfect. You're good to go.
He's going to want to, yeah.
Yeah. What's up? Did I
Yeah, no, because I unplugged the adapter, so he wants to go straight into the
Oh,
HDMI.
right. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Yeah, don't forget that keyboard. It's an awesome keyboard. Cool. So we've got two more lightning talk presenters. We'll give Simon the floor here, and then after our last lightning talk of the night, we'll have a quick break so you can go back, make sure you sign that drawing, because you got to get that NDC ticket. It'd be awesome. Simon, can we get a round of applause for Simon? Yeah!
I'm Simon. I make web apps, and today, I guess we're going to code together. So if you have your laptop with you, have a network connection, you can open up your browser to this URL here. So the preface is, have you ever kind of felt a little bit discouraged by maybe learning or trying to build something on something that you like, but feel like some of the new technologies may take too long to learn or require reading like 30 minutes of documentation? That totally turns me off. I don't want to do that. But today, we're going to kind of code together, and my kind of selling point is going to be, you're going to be able to make your own public API or web page, publicly hosted, under 1 minute, free. Wow. So this is how it's going to work. So if you got your browser open to this URL, first thing you're going to be asked is to perform single sign-on. I think either GitHub or Google's can probably be the simplest for you. After that, what you're going to want to do is it'll prompt you to create something, and you're going to want to select a template. In this case, we're going to choose async function. I'll tell you more about this under the covers later. But so you select that, just name it async function. There we go. And from here, you've got your own public API readily available. You just click the link on the bottom here. And that's it. We're done.
Oh, I'm still moving.
We'll get to that. So yeah, so you've got, what happens here is you've got your own personalized URL that is not going to go away. It's just there. You can hit it. In this case, it returns back, if you take a look at the code here, it returns back just a JSON object with hello property. And you can potentially pass in a query parameter that changes the outcome. So in this case, if I do name Simon, changes the response. Just like that. So yeah, under the covers, you can kind of think of it, a web task, as like a serverless function or Lambda. So I guess some more examples that I have that I can show are you can make an app that kind of returns back dad jokes. So yeah, in this case, web tasks fully support, I guess, leveraging NPM modules. So like in this case, I just used node fetch, and I'm making a fetch to another site that actually generates the jokes. So another use case for a web task is you can kind of host your own web app if you wanted to. So the code here, I'm just returning straight HTML. And I'm just displaying a base64 image as well. So it is super simple to just kind of make something public. So the coolest part about this is that web tasks come with persistent storage. So a lot of times when you need to store something and you want to make sure that it doesn't reset anytime your server restarts, you usually go to like an online host database. All of the ones that I've found so far I've kind of stopped reading documentation after a while and just started doing something else. I just gave up on it. But with WebTask, you can access their kind of storage API, and it's kind of like a simple promise. They allow you so all this is free. They allow you to store 500 kilobytes of data, which is plenty for if you want to do some small scale like JSON object text storage. So I guess my next example here, we've got a ready place clone. So it's kind of like a collaborative pixel editing canvas here. So for those that are interested, you can go to node-redditplace.herokuapp.com, and then you can kind of start drawing stuff here, and it'll just show up on the screen. But under the covers, what it's doing is I'm just storing this entire pixel canvas into kind of a plain JavaScript object.
Yeah. People are playing with it.
Yeah, so I'm just storing each individual like row, column, and then the color, and then just displaying it here. The really cool thing is it's just stored in my web task. I know it's never gonna go down, or there's not gonna be any sort of extended outage. And from the backend side, I've got a node server, but I know that it occasionally restarts. So having this kind of persistent storage without worrying about it and having it as a kind of a very simple JavaScript interface makes it really, really empowering. It lets you kind of do whatever your creative desires you have. So we've got our community canvas here. And yeah. So yeah, if you found this helpful, make your own app, and I guess let me know. I'd like to see what you guys come up with. So that's it.
Thanks, Simon. That's awesome. So cool. Tag yourself on the orange one. No? All right. Okay, awesome. Shalana, come on up. No worries. All good. So this is our HDMI cable, so we just have to nudge things a little bit. That's going to be the wrong one, unfortunately. Randall, do you happen to have the USB-C? It has just have the wrong other end on there.
I don't, but we can just do it real quick.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, sorry about that.
Camera's staring at my butt. There we go. That's better.
Thank you. Oh, that's good. That's good.
I need the HDMI cable back into the hospital.
We need, I got this back.
Oh, yeah, let's use.
Okay, that'll be easier.
We'll fix this the other way.
Of course, she was smarter.
Thank you. You're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, just give it a second as well.
Yeah. I'm Shalana Dawson, and I work at White House Custom Color as a front-end engineer. And I'm going to be talking about an editor I created with another person on the front-end side, and that's Card Editor, and it's launched. And I'm also going to talk about one other editor that is in progress. So it's not done yet. And there are other things that White House does, and like engineering-wise, but I'm just going to be covering things that I have knowledge of or have worked on. So what is White House Custom Color, or WHCC? And it's a professional photo printing lab, and they cater directly to photographers mostly, but they also have some partnerships with other vendors and print things for them. And there are some maybe consumer possibilities, direct-to-consumer possibilities in the future. So like you have a photographer, and then you get maybe your engagement photos done, or your wedding photos, or some like headshots done, and he or she says, would you like some photos printed in an album or on a canvas or just a photo proof book of some sort? And you say, yeah, I want some of those. They go through us to get those printed. The photographer will go through us. And these editors are free to use if you are a White House Custom Color, if you have an account with us. So I'm going to go through the first one that I helped create, and I think it launched like 2 years ago, I think. And this part, I didn't work on this part. We'll get into the editor, and that's the part that I worked on. So I can start with picking a picking a card. So I'll say I select this one. And there's a lot of options I can pick right before I get into the editor. I'm just going to go through it here. And some things you can do, you can go ahead and change your foil color, and you can change your shape. And there's different themes. So we've got colors that are associated, like they just switch. This is SVG based, so those colors will all, like if it's a rectangle or whatever shape it is, will fill with this new color.
and I can go, I'm going to add some photos to this. And these are not necessarily appropriate photos. They're just photos I have on hand, and they're my husband's fish fry last year. So I wouldn't necessarily put these in a holiday card of any sort. It's beautiful. Thank you. And you can change the text and some of the cool, I mean, I worked a lot on the text stuff. Or there's just a lot of weird stuff in the browser when it comes to text. But here is, like, I can change the color and line, and a lot of these editing tools have it where you change the whole thing at once. Like, you can only change the whole color of the whole box. You can't usually go in and say, I want this range to have a certain font. You can't do that in most of these editors. So I'm going to go to the next one and just throw a lovely photo of my husband here. Move it. You can zoom in, zoom out. And I can change this text if I want. In this area, it says your studio here, and a lot of our clients want that, of course. If they're creating this card for their clients, they want to make sure they have their branding or their name at the bottom. So that's why we have that there. There's actually a pass on some stuff that I haven't worked on, but they can kind of set up a shop of some sort and have that and pass their name through, and then that's not an editable field, basically. But I'm just going to delete that for right now. And you've got an envelope, and I'm going to put some printing on it, and you've got some more options. Maybe this one. And I continue going on, and there's an error because I didn't change that. So I'm just going to, because I know that I can just delete something, and that will go away. I don't have to go that far. You can change the quantity, and then change the paper type, and then you can check out. And it goes back to this bookending is what we call it, like when you're selecting and then you're exiting, we call it the bookending. You can put other things around it. So that's a card editor, and starting almost a year ago, so like last February, last year, I started working on an investigation into albums and album design. And it makes a lot of sense that we would be making these editors because if we help people create things that they want, they'll purchase these printed products. So let's go into, so this is, you're going to get, this is a thing, but it's not like, this is all dummy photos, and this is just a spread of an album, and it's, I'm just trying to see what we can do with those collaging efforts. So I select some photos and I put it on the spread. And there's a lot of challenges that came with coming up with ways to collage a bunch of photos and respect those ratios that are given to us, or try to respect those ratios as much as possible, and what kind of like different iterations can you do of that. And here I have, if I go show ignored layouts, there are definitely things that like did not pass. And you can see they're here, and I have like little tiny hints for myself on why they didn't pass. Like this one right here, the photos are too small, and that's why it didn't pass. And there's other problems with that layout, but that's the first thing that it failed. And this one, the container ratio was too small for this spread, so that's why it failed. But I'll go back to something that didn't fail. And so, also tried out spacing. And you wouldn't go this far, that's a terrible idea, but it's a prototype, and that's what these things are for. And some other fun things that we prototyped before starting the actual application, swapping is a pretty normal thing. Oh, that did not work. Swapping should work. This is bugless. It's just perfect the way it is. And you can also move these handles, and I can insert on a handle. And I can delete, and it kind of like knows what to do, which is fun. I showed inserting on the handle, right? That's good. Okay. And you can see some of the containers are different. Like you can have 2 containers, like one on each page, or this is like a 1/3, 2/3 kind of container deal. And this one's like, I want you to fill the full spread as much as you can. So that's some collaging stuff. I went deep into collaging, so about 5 months that I looked into this and worked on this prototype. And And this was started with Create React App and Redux. So that's a prototype. And so I started working on the actual application, I don't know if it was July or August of last year. And it's in progress. I've been okayed to show this to you guys. So here it is, and it's not done. And we have like cover, I haven't touched that yet, and then end pages. And this is different than the card editor, and you can kind of see that because we've got a lot more things going on, a lot of spreads, and you can add a spread, you can delete spreads, and you can pick one up and move it to the back, and those things are kind of like must-haves. You should be able to reorder your spreads. So I'm going to populate this with some dummy photos as well. And let's say the first spread, I just want to throw a bunch of detail shots on it. So I'm just going to drag and throw those on there. And this should be familiar. You guys saw a lot of this. And here are different layouts that I can choose. And I also have a shuffle option if you don't really want to, you just want to see what happens. And you're like, oh, I like that one before. You can undo and redo. I'm going to go to the next page. Another fun addition to the actual application is you can just add something to a side. So I can put it on this page, and I can put this one on that page, at least to start. Right now I'm working, I just have the hover states for this, but you're going to be able to click and like, scale. That's like the next thing I'm working on. Let's do one more, and maybe I'll populate this one with an existing layout that I already used. That happens a lot when people are creating albums. They like want to create a rhythm, so they might use like 4 different types of layouts and repeat them throughout. I did not show the expanded view. So here's the expanded view, which is also great, especially for people who want to quickly just like map out their whole album. So like you could just be like, I want these 3 on this page, and I want, let's get some more photos. I want these 3 on this page, and maybe I just want to shuffle through them a couple times until I like that one, or stay there, and maybe some getting ready shots. Here she's getting ready, and throw those onto here, and I'm cool with that, so that's great. And then I can fine tune it if I want, or move them around here, or add them. Basically the same things that you had, except you get dupe in this one. And then I can just double click and enter that one. And is there anything else to show this? I think that's about as far as I've gotten so far. And I'm definitely showing this because we have a UI engineer role out there that we just put up last week. And I'm one of the screeners for the position, and this role would initially work with me, and then perhaps work on other projects or related projects. So it would be like starting with me on the album, and then we may do other things and get on other little tiny teams within the group. So if you're interested in that, we are actually looking at the whole gamut. So if you're a senior engineer, we're interested in you, and if you're like a junior but you show a lot of potential in like the design aspect, where you don't actually design because we have the UI. We've actually got 2 UI designers on staff, but we work very closely, and you kind of have to care about design. It's kind of a big deal, and be able to kind of pull off whatever's thrown at you in a way, even though we work in a very like collaborative team. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. We have, go to whcc.com, and I also posted this in the Slack, so you can go to jobs. You go down to the bottom, whcc.com, and go down to the very bottom, and go to careers. You gotta scroll a little bit and get down to design and engineering, and then there's the UI engineer role. So if you're interested, I would love to talk to you about it, and definitely apply if you think that that kind of stuff is interesting. So, oh, I didn't talk about White House is in Eagan, Minnesota, and that it's kind of cool because it's 2 buildings, and we produce this stuff in Eagan. So like I can, I don't know, 100 feet, I can be on the floor looking at these things being made. So it's like right there. One building that I'm in has like small prints, and then the other building has like the big prints. It's a 2-story kind of warehousey looking thing, but it's got lots of light, so it's nice, and that was built just recently. So online, you can reach me. I'm just putting my Twitter up, even though I'm not like crazy into Twitter, but I have other like links that you can get to me from Twitter at. So Shalana Faith, and then work is whcc.com. So thank you.
Thanks again, Shalana. It's always magnificent to see what you're working on. I know this is like, it's been a couple of times you've been up here and sharing with us, and it's always so, like always perfect, on point, and I love it.
Oh,
It's
thanks.
magnificent. So thanks again.
I
Another round
can't
of
care about databases. That's the problem.
That's fair. That's fair. Awesome. Well, so that kind of concludes the first portion of our evening. So feel free to hang out, take a break for a second while we get our new presenter set up here. We'll be back in, what should we say? Let's say 5 minutes. Restrooms are outside of this area. The women's restroom is right immediately over there, and the men's restroom is a little bit further down the hallway, but you can get back in the same way you came out. We'll put something on the screen so you know, so you know when we're going to get started. We'll call everyone back in 5 minutes, so please find your seats in 5 minutes. Thanks.
different than any other firm in the Twin Cities. And if you're interested in learning more about that, reach out to me. Maybe we can do lunch or happy hour or just talk on the phone. But I am looking for folks. I'm looking for a lot of senior folks, .NET folks, JavaScript folks, Node, React, Angular. So yeah, reach out to me. So we're going to talk tonight about React Native. When I first started learning React, it was a little bit frustrating because I was going through these tutorials, and some of these tutorials were using what we call Expo. I'm going to get into what Expo is here in a moment. And some of them were not. They didn't really explain why. Sometimes I was using this Expo, sometimes I wasn't using Expo, and I decided I'm going to put this talk together. The talk is originally an hour and a half. I gave this talk at MDC, not NDC, but MDC last year, and the .NET user group and one other group I can't recall. It's an hour and a half long. I don't have an hour and a half, so we're going to get as far as we get, and then we're going to wrap it up there. I'm going to give you my opinion on React Native. It's my opinion. There are people that would disagree with my opinion, so full disclaimer. We're going to go ahead and get started. My hope is that if you decide to start digging into React Native, that I can accelerate the learning curve a little bit, just a little bit, make it a little less frustrating for you. So we've got React Native. Now, a lot of people call it a native app, right? You'll hear React Native native app, and you're like, React Native native? What's a native native? So it's a React Native app or an RN app versus, call it an Expo app. For the moment, I'm going to call it an Expo app. In both cases, you're writing JavaScript, you're writing JSX. A React Native app, an RN app. You're going to install on a Mac. You're going to install Xcode. On Windows, you're going to install a Java SDK, a PHP, Android Development Studio. You're going to get emulators set up. Now, I had a heck of a time getting this to run on my Windows machine. And my background is Windows. I've been doing .NET since it came out in 2000, the beta. And so I'm an old Windows guy, but I had a heck of a time. Mac, it just worked. And so my advice is, if you can't,
I just got one.
Well done. Yeah, if you can't get a Mac, then get a Mac. That's my advice. There you go. So when you develop an RN app, you're actually going to deploy it to Google Play or to the Apple Store. One of the benefits of this is you can actually use native modules. So if you've got some legacy code written in Objective-C or Java and you don't want to rewrite that logic, there are ways that you can call those methods into those libraries and reuse that code. Now, if you're in an interview and somebody asks you, I could see somebody asking this gotcha question. I hate gotcha questions, but I could see somebody asking a gotcha question. But what's one of the differences between a React native app and an Expo app? And first thing I would say, well, the command line, of course. So the command for a native app is React Native init, and this will spin up a new React Native RN app. An Expo app, often you'll see CRNA. I remember when XAML first came out, I said to my buddy, I go, hey, have you heard of XMAL? And he starts laughing. He goes, it's XAML, you idiot. Now, I don't know if it's Krina or CRNA. I'm calling it Krina, and maybe I'm going down the wrong path. But you got RN versus Krina. If you're in Stack Overflow and you say, hey, I can't get this to work, probably the first response you're going to get is, are you using the native or CRNA path? The command for CRNA is create React Native app and the name of your app. So yeah, they're both JavaScript. It feels very much the same. There are a few different directories. In a native app, you're going to see an iOS folder. You're going to see an Android folder. You're going to see Java, files with the .java extension. Where an Expo app, you're not going to see that. An Expo app, you don't need Xcode or Android Studio. It's easy to test. It's easier to test, and I'm going to show you this demo I did it in an Expo. I'm going to show you how it's easy to deploy to various testers. It's very easy on an Android device. Apple made the developers of Expo get rid of this feature for whatever reason. So you can still do it on an iPhone, but it's a little bit harder than it used to be. And then you can deploy it to Expo Store, so you don't got to go through Google Play and the App Store. You can deploy it on Expo Store. So it's kind of analogous to, so Expo is an app that you would download onto your mobile device, and I'll show you here, I've actually installed that app, and then my app runs within that app's context. So the native piece is Expo. Expo is running on the device, and then my app is sitting on top of it. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a browser, right? I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of Hockey app. That's another example of it's a very similar thing. So there's nothing new or unique about this. Lots of third-party components. You can't access native modules. My opinion is don't bother with an Expo app. Just do a native app. Because you're going to get into a situation where you're going to hit some block or some limit, and you're going to end up trying to port it over, and it's just going to be a hassle. But again, the command is there. So in order to do anything, React or Expo, you need to install the React Native CLI. So I've already installed that. npm install React Native CLI. You guys want to see some code? All right. Yeah. So this living room ambiance is new to me as a presenter, so I'm going to embrace it and see what I can do here. All right. Okay, so, real quick. So here's an example of two apps. The one over here is a Expo app. This one up here is a native app. And again, you'll see in the native app, I've got this Android folder with these Java files. I've got an iOS folder with, for example, the info P list. And so if you want to access, for this particular app that I wrote, this app was written for horseback riding business. That's why it's called Bullseye, because Toy Story is one of my favorite movies. And so to access the hardware, I had to go into these various files and make tweaks and adjustments. Whereas over here, the demo that we're going to do tonight, you see it's just got that Expo folder. I'll put this over here so you can see our emulator. Now I already did the React Native create app, and I call it React Native demo. So I already ran that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in a React Native run Android. Okay, so when I run this, you're going to see an error message on the bottom because it's going to say, hey, there are no Android emulators. Can you guys see that okay? Is that all right? Okay. All right, if you can't hear me back there, raise one finger and I'll try to speak louder. All right, I'll try to speak louder.
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Thank you.
Can you make the image on the screen bigger?
Somebody help me out.
Man plus.
Pardon?
Man plus.
Too big?
Thank you.
Oh, that's big. All right.
Well, that's perfect.
All right. So React Native run Android. So I don't have an emulator running right now for Android, so it's going to complain, but that's okay because what I'm going to show quickly, as this thing starts up, I'm going to make this big so we can see this QR code. Now I'm not going to make you look at my phone all night, just for a couple of minutes. I've got the Expo app running on this phone. And you got to be on the same network. So if you join my network, Tonka Source Network, and you downloaded this app, you would be able to do this as well. So I'm going to launch the Expo app, and the first thing it's going to do when it comes up is I'm going to say I want to scan this QR code. And so now I'm going to bring this QR code into view, and if I scan it, so right now you can't see it, but it's saying it's downloading JavaScript bundle, and there it is. There's the app. If I come in here to my code here, and I'm just going to change this background to purple, and I'm going to hit save. Now I'm not doing anything here. I'm just going to hold up my phone, and it will reload. And so it just I'm not wired in here. Anybody that downloaded this app, that's why I say it's pretty easy to I'm not going to make you look at this anymore, so I'm going to set this down. And instead, I am going to bring up React Native run iOS. And it's going to bring up my iOS simulator. So here's the thing. I gave this talk in NDC, and it kept crashing. And people came up to me, hey, I'm really sorry your demo didn't go well. I said, no, the demo went exactly how I wanted it to go. My idea is to convey what developing React Native is like, and that's what it can be like. And so I'm going to set this over here. Now, can you guys see that pretty well? Oh, that's good. All right, so you see it fired up Expo right away. You notice it fired up my browser. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this for a moment. We're going to get into the browser here in a second. And you can see down here at the bottom, it's downloading the JavaScript bundle. If you're not running an Expo app, if I were to be running a native app, there's a terminal that runs in the background. And I was changing code. I made some pretty big changes. And I kept saving it, but I couldn't see my changes. I probably wasted well over an hour messing around. Absolute hope, man, frustration before I realized I had to bounce that terminal and restart everything. So just a little aside, if you find yourself in that situation and you're like, what did Mike say again? Do your best to remember that. So, yeah, I'm not going to win any design awards tonight, just so you know. But we're going to get into a little bit about how many React developers we got here. Okay, all right. So this might be a little redundant for you folks, but we're going to cover a little bit of the React side of this thing. So I'm using JSX here, and this component, my default component app, extends a React component. You see that I'm pulling in React here from the React library. All React components have to implement a render method. If I get rid of this method and I hit save, we're going to see an error saying the instance render is not a function. In other words, it can't find the render method. So I'm going to get rid of that, and we're back to operating. The other thing about JSX is every component has to return one root component. Now, this isn't exactly a perfect analogy, but don't beat me up if you don't agree with this. But I think, in my opinion, I think a view component is pretty analogous to a div. If you were doing HTML, it's often the root component that you return. If I tried to come in here and say, hey, I want to return, another div, or another view, I'm going to get an error saying, you got to wrap it in if you want this other view, you got to put it inside a root component. To me, it'd be like if I said this. If I had a function, and I said return A, return B. That's kind of what that would be. It just wouldn't make any sense, right? So that's one little thing that you'll see. You gotta implement the render method. The other thing is, in this case, so I don't know if it's necessarily Expo or Node, but this entry point into this app, it's looking for a module called app. First let's make sure we're running. Okay, so this is one behavior that sometimes you'll see. In certain cases, I was afraid I was going to have to bounce that and make you watch me. But if I were to rename this, get this something else, you'll see, oh wow, didn't expect that. Oh, you know what it is? It's the file. If I come over here and change the file name, you'll see that. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to see an error in regard to, you can see down here that the Krina, so this is Expo, this is CRNA entry.js. So this is Expo's engine is saying, look, I'm looking for a file called app to run in my container. So you got to have this thing called app. Now, is there a way to get around there? Perhaps. I didn't dig too deep into that. I would say just go with app. So another little side note. So I'm trying to introduce some real basic things so that when we go to the next portion of this demo, it'll be a little clearer what I'm doing. So you see how we got these styles here, right? What's going on here? Okay, so you see how Expo has locked up over here, even though I've renamed everything? This is an example where I'm going to kill the simulator and start it back up. So React Native Run iOS. One of the things you'll notice here is that I've got a style on here. And React Native component has one method on it called the create. And in this create, I can create other objects. So in here, I could come in here and I could say, let's say I want to do a text style. I can come in here and say, I don't know, font size 25. And then I can come up here and say style equals, and I can reference styles.text style. Now I can name this thing anything I want. I can call it Mike Emo thing, right? And then I just got to change the name up here. So there's nothing like convention-wise on what you call this. These styles. So you can see how that's displayed. Does this make sense so far? All right. So another very common component, and I'm doing something very cumbersome. I'm purposely showing you how cumbersome this would be, so that you can see how I would actually build an app when I show you the next part of this demo. So there's another component in here called the text input component. And if I wanted to, and I said, all right, well, first let's get rid of this style. Well, yeah, let's leave that. I'm going to leave that style there. Yes?
The black text on dark purple is hard to read.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm going to change this yellow. Yes, is that better?
Yes.
All right. Thanks for the feedback. Awesome. So let's see. I'm going to delete this, and I'm just going to come in here and say user. Now, do we got any Angular developers in here? Just a few. Okay. Text input. So I'm going to come here and I'm just going to create this text input. I'm going to save it, and we're not going to see it. It's not there. It's because we've got to set up a style. So we go style equals styles dot text input, and text input. Let's see. Text align. What is it? I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank. So imagine we got some styles. I don't want to bog us down. So imagine we got a style here, and then I were to create this, copy this, and then I stuck it down here, and I'm gonna refer to this as the password, right? Enter password. Now imagine I've got numerous controls in here, and I'm copying and pasting all of these text input, right? It would get kind of cumbersome, clunky, right? And so one of the things I'd want to do is I'd say, gosh, and I often do this when I create components. I often try to use the component before I actually build it. And so like in Visual Studio, I'll actually put comments. I'll put a big comment block, and I'll use the component before I build it. So let's say, for example, where it's like, well, how would you like this thing to look? I'd say, well, gosh, what I'd really like to be able to do is if I could go, my cool, input, right? And I guess what I'd like to do is go, placeholder equals username, label equals username. What else? You got to keep track of the text change. On text change equals this dot on text change. We're gonna get into that here in a moment. And so I've got this input that sort of wraps that up, and it'll take care of saying, okay, I got to create a text component, and then I got to create an input component underneath that component. Does that make sense? And so this is basically what I did. So what I'm going to do, if you bear with me for a moment, I'm going to copy this, come over here. We got any Git users here? All right, good. So I'm going to do Git checkout / close this. Let's see. Now it looks like my simulator is bogging down again. Oh, no, there it is. All right, look at that design. Is that good or what? Not so much. Okay, so let's take a look at what I did here. And I'm going to fix that little buffer, that little margin issue there in a second. So I created these folders called components and services. And under components, I said, I got some common components, and I got this authentication component, a more higher level component. And if we go look at our app, now we'll see that now I've just got a view, and I've got just one reference to a login. This is much cleaner. In fact, it's going to get even more cleaner before we're done. But this is a lot cleaner than what it was before when I was piling stuff up in here. And so before we look at this login form, I want to go down to some of the more basic components that I created. So I've got this input component that I created. And it references a text component, also references a text and a view in the style sheet, just like before. It has a render method. And inside this render method, I say, well, okay, I got my root view. I create a text component, and then I create a text input component underneath it. And I set up all my styling in here so that it'll render the way I want to render it. So you can see I got a placeholder here. In my password, I've got it hiding the characters. And the way I do that is by passing in props. And so if we go look at this login form, we'll see that I also have a render method. And in here I say, well, I want to create an input component. I want the label to be email. If I change the label to something else, and I misspell it, it will remember all my misspellings. So it makes it a lot easier to create these more reusable components. And so this is known as a property here. So I'm passing in this property. Now, all components that inherit from React.component get access to a props. So if you look here, you'll say, okay, I got a text component. I want to display some text. Well, it gets the text from the props. This .props is accessible because input component inherits from React component. Does this make sense? Okay. The other thing I want to talk about is state. So state, anybody here is familiar with state? Okay. If I speak on this, feel free to help me out. All right, thanks, brother. So here's the thing about state. You see how in here I'm saying, okay, I got this input component, and I'm setting its value to props.value. And then I'm saying, when this thing changes, I want you to throw an error. I did not want that to happen. I'm not sure what happened. But we'll come back to that. So as people are typing into this text box, it's going to call this method up here called onTextChange. OnTextChange is going to ask for the callback method to the parent that's referencing this component, and it's going to call that method, and it's going to say, listen, here's the property that this input component is assigned to. So in this case, it was email, and here's the current value. And what the login form does is it says, all right, if the text changes, tell me the property that you changed. So if you changed email address, I'll update my email address. If you change the password, if this said password, okay, fine, I'll update the password. And so The idea behind this is, so you see I got the state object, I got email, I got password. I also have this is loading equals false. And so I'm going to come in here real quick, and I am just going to say console.log on change fire. And then I'm going to come down here to the render method, and I'll say console.log render called, and then I'm going to pass in this dot state. All right. Let's see if I can figure out why. Hey, this is what it is sometimes to develop in React Native. Let's try this again. So I built this entire app, and I was like, okay, I got this thing to show up on my simulator. I got it to show up on my phone. All right, sweet. And I just put the simulator away, and I built this whole app with just using my Android device. I got to the end, and I tried to fire it up, and it crashed. And I had no idea why it was working on my Android device, and it wasn't working on my iPhone simulator. And I had to keep going back to my check-ins. I was like, well, let me go back one check-in. Does it work now? Nope. Go back until I found, the check-in that broke it. So my advice is, if you're doing a native app, make sure you're constantly testing on both devices. If you can have them both running at the same time, and just at least verifying that the pages or the screens will load. You know what I mean? Very advisable, or it's going to make for a very frustrating experience. So if I come in here, now if I were using my device, what I'd do is I'd shake my phone. If I were to shake my phone, I would get this screen would pop up. And I can refresh the screen. What I want to do right now is I want to, I'm actually already debugging, sweet. So you see where it says stop debugging? If I hit stop debugging, it would say start debugging, and I can start debugging. So we're in debugging right now. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring up my browser, and I'm going to right click on here and say inspect. We'll look at the console, and I'm just going to clear this out, and I will refresh, and we'll see. Okay, there you go. You see it says AA render call, and my current state is my email is empty, my password is empty, and my is loading is false. If I click on here and I start typing, you'll see that the onChange fired. After my onChange fired, render got called again. I changed it, render got called again. Anytime the state changes, my render method gets fired. What am I going to do? Test.com, I think it is. I'm actually using Firebase as a back end here. And so I'm going to click this, and we'll see. You see where it says is loading? See how it says is loading equals true? And then it went back to is loading equals false? So is loading equals true is what makes that little spinner show. Is loading equals false makes the spinner go away and my button display. Let's take a quick look at how that's working. So when I click that button on login click, first thing I do is I set my state. This set state method is inherited from component. And so the fact that I am extending component means that I have access to this method set state. Whenever you call set state changes the state, and then it calls the render method again. That's why you keep seeing, on change firing render, on change firing render. So then I created this service, and here's where I actually do my authentication. Here I'm just using a promise. I didn't use the await keyword, but come back here and say, okay, I've logged in, and then finally I'm going to set my state back to false, which makes the button reappear. So again, there's the spinner, and boom, there's the button. Now I wouldn't do it. This is a little clunky, but just for the demo, I'm saying render button or spinner. So I'm saying if state equals is loading, then return my spinner. Else, return my button. So that's how I'm choosing on which component I want to display. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see what else I want to cover here before we move on. I think this is good. We're going to move on to the final product. Prepare yourself. Just prepare yourself. This is where it gets big time. I'm just kidding. All right. So this place to call actually works on, if I were to fire this back up and use Expo, it'd bring up my phone activity, and I'd be able to make the phone call. The simulator won't allow you to do that. It's actually going to throw an error when we do this, but such is life. All right, let me go get checkout /force. Make sure I close all this in case I made any changes. Kill the simulator. All right, here we go. So, what's my opinion on React Native? So I wrote this app for trail riding businesses, right? If you're right, in my opinion, you guys don't agree with this, it's fine, no hard feelings. In my opinion, if you're writing what I call kind of a little, rinky-dink, small little app, fine, give it a shot. If you're doing anything enterprise, so I work for Trimble Transportation, they have software running on over 400,000 semi-trucks around the globe, and they're sending in, we're doing like 3,000 record saves per second. They're sending in their GPS coordinates, and they have a mobile, an Android device. Oh, that's not what I wanted to see. I'm going to have to deal with that in a second. And it's an enterprise application. And I would never, ever use React Native for something like that, ever. And my reason is, I always say the opposite of risk is predictability, right? If you can't predict what's going to happen, or the less you can predict what's going to happen, the higher your risk is, right? And writing a native app in iOS and writing a native app in Android doing dual environment, yes, it's painful, but it's predictable pain. Writing an app in React Native on an enterprise level, you have no idea the pain you're going to be running into. And I'm going to show a case study of that here in a moment. I really hope I can get this running or egg on my face. I just talked about how blown away you're going to be. And then I can't even bring it up. I'm going to be blown away. So you guys know, obviously you guys have heard of Airbnb. So Airbnb in 2016, they went all in on React Native. And they have 5 or 6 blog post entries on their React Native experience. And the first one, they're like, man, we can't wait. We are going all in. We're going to get this advantage, this advantage, this advantage. It's going to be amazing. And then every blog post just got a little bit less enthusiastic. And the 5th blog post, or 6th blog post, can't remember which one, was in June of 2018. We are abandoning React Native completely, and we're rewriting everything in native, iOS, in our Objective-C or Swift, and Android. And that was, literally before I started Bullseye. I was like, well, should I even do this? It's like, nope, I'm going to do this because it'll give me some credibility. I can say, hey, I've actually built something, and so on and so forth. So test.test.com, password. Look at that spinner. You see up here, I got this. I got actual title up here now. I've got a list item here. Gretchen, that's my wife. I got to ask her on a date. I got a caller. If I call her right now in the simulator, it's going to blow up. Imagine that. If I did it on my phone, it would work. I got to log back in now. Test.test.com, password. I just tell you my password. And then here I can do add. So you see this sliding action. So I'm actually using React Navigation, which is a very misleading term. Because I was like, hey, React Navigation. My client were doing React there. And I was like, hey, let's use React Navigation. And they all kind of looked at me. And like, well, that's just for React Native. I thought you said you've done React. And so we got into this whole situation where React Navigation is really, really, really cool, but it's only for React Native. But we're going to take a look at it here in a second. So if I say Elvis Presley, I don't know if I spelled that right, what's his phone number? 555-555-555. 11. This is really exciting stuff. Are you guys wild? 2019, create the follow-up, and there it is, boom. So let's take a look really quick at React navigation. If we go back to our app, so remember I said app.js is your entry point? So I pulled in React navigation, and the documentation could not be better for how to use this component. It is really, really easy to use. It's very, very obvious on how to use it. I love obvious code. And so I'm pulling in React navigation. This create stack navigator method literally returns a component. And inside here, it says, okay, these are the various components that I'm going to know how to navigate to. I'm going to navigate to the first one. If I were to switch the order of these and put it above login, it would try to navigate to follow-up list first. But that depends on the person being logged in, and so it would fail because I already tried it. So React navigation is very, very slick for keeping track of these various screens. In my login form, what I did is after I log in, I just say, hey, navigate, and navigate comes from, where's navigate come from? Oh, navigate is getting injected in here. So every one of those components that's listed in there is getting injected through its props a navigation reference. So now I can just say, hey, navigate, and I just tell it, here's the screen I want you to navigate to. So that's how I got here. And then if I click on one of these, let's go to my follow-ups list. I think it's item. So on row press, to say navigation, navigate, update follow-up. So if I go here, now I'm on the update follow-up. You can see the title up there. You can tell it whether you want to have a back button or not. So on my login form, I didn't want you to be able to go back to the login form. So I simply say, hey, don't render that. Stop doing that. So what else do I want to show here? Yeah, so there's, okay, right there. There's an example. This has not been doing this, but all of a sudden, I'm getting this red death screen, right? Welcome to, unpredictable. I don't know what I'm going to run into. So there's obviously something misconfigured here. That if I cared, I would dig into this thing and resolve it. What I want to do now is go to this Airbnb sunsetting React Native. Great article, series of articles. Like I said, there's 5 blog posts. So here, React Native and Airbnb. This was back in 2016. We're taking a big bet, and we're ready to share our experience. This whole thing was all about all the benefits they're going to get. And again, if you look, so one of the things, and I might not be getting it exactly right, but from what I remember, one of the things they talked about is the JavaScript engine that runs on the device is not the same JavaScript engine that runs in the debugger. So even though they plugged in, they're like, we got this bug that keeps happening. What's going on? So they plug in the device so that they can debug it, and it's working just fine. And they couldn't figure out, they spent many, many hours trying to figure out why this is working. Well, the JavaScript engine on this particular Android device was not the same one as the one on the debugger, and it wasn't what's on iPhone. And so they had to write their own logic to force that the device download the JavaScript engine that they wanted to use. Right? That's just one of the many, many examples of the unpredictable problems that they ran, unpredictable pain that they ran into. For me, as a business person and business in general, predictable results, even if it's, yeah, they always want to get rid of the pain, but they really want predictable outcomes. So yeah, this pretty much concludes my demo. Are there any questions I can answer? Yes, sir.
Maybe one question. I don't know, do you export default everywhere somewhere?
Pardon?
Export default
You're saying there's an issue with the export's default keyword.
Yeah, the default.
Okay, I'm not familiar with you're saying that in ES6.
Yeah, that means you can't technically that by default.
I've never heard that before. That's new to me. Have you guys heard that before? I'll have to dig into that. One of the things that I did here with my common components. So you see how.
Yeah. No, in your common components you don't use export.
Right. Yeah. In my common components, I didn't use export default. What I did is at the very bottom, I export the component. The reason I did that is so that when I reference it, for example, up here, I'm able to reference all of my components in one line. So I don't have to go, import button from this file, import card from that file, import card section from this file. I can just group them all together and say, hey, look in that one folder and you'll find all these components. I'll have to dig into the default keyword problem. I'm not. You're thinking that's why this is blowing up?
No.
Okay.
No, I never use default in my
Okay. Yeah, I've been using it. We use it at Trimble on all of our React projects. We've never had any issues with it. So yeah, I'll have to dig into that. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Other than instability in the development environment, what are some of the other pain points you see with React Native?
So this was
not native, but React Native versus Expo create React Native.
Yes. So on my Bullseye application, the idea is, so I was out at Yellowstone last summer, and I'm horseback riding, and I had one daughter in front of me and one daughter behind me, and I'm trying to take pictures, but all I could get was her back, right? And I'm trying to do one of these, And I thought, we drove all the way out here. The trail hand, she knew all the spots. She's riding around. I thought and they make tips. They work out tips. Listen, if you just snap some photos with your phone, right, and you just said, hey, here's a code, Mike, and the other family that was with us. There's no internet connectivity out here, but if you give me a couple days, as soon as I get connected, I'm going to upload all these photos to a site, and you're going to get an email or a text message, and you can buy your photos. Or if you just want to get tips, see, I'm going to give them to you for free. You'll get a better tip on, right? Like, I went all the way out there. I would easily spend at least $15, $20 on some cool photos, especially if she knows the real nice photo ops, right? So I needed the camera. What else did I need? I needed the camera. It's something else. I can't remember what else I needed from the hardware. And so React Native was like, oh, it's so easy to use camera roll. No, it wasn't. Like, I went through their steps. Nope. So I'm over in Stack Overflow, and I'm just hacking. I'm like, well, this guy says go update this Java file. So I updated a Java file. Here, let me see if I can bring it up. So I updated a Java file, and not really sure what I'm doing, right? I'm totally hacking, and I finally got the camera to work, right? And I kept committing, doing commitments, committing and rolling back, like, all right, I just totally screwed everything up. So I had to go with my Android here, and let's see, where am I? App, source. I had to go into one of these Java files. I don't remember which one anymore. I'm pretty sure it was activity, and I had to make a modification here to get it work. That was not in the steps, right? Oh, so there was the camera roll, and then there was the actual camera. I mean, I spent hours literally just hacking, going through Stack Overflow. Well, that guy says try that. All right, I'll try that. Nope, that didn't work. Roll back. So the pain was unpredictable. It's changing so much. Who's the gentleman over here? You've got an app out there.
Yeah.
Did you experience any of the same things, or am I alone on this?
No, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Okay, good. I was so worried you'd be like, no, man, I had no problem. That was a risk. That was a risky move. Don't do that.
I'd argue exploring Expo a little bit more. Long way since 2016.
Okay.
A lot of the integrations with hardware are getting a lot better.
Is that right? You're a big Expo fan.
Yeah. I
Okay.
work on that a lot right now. So,
Oh, good.
but you got to realize that software development environment has come a long way.
Yes.
The last 2 years, like,
Well, and that's
life's
where.
getting a lot easier.
Yep. Yep. And so that's where I go back to this Airbnb series of posts. So this is the first one where like, yeah, here are all the benefits we're going to get. And the last one they went through and said, hey, these are all the reasons why we didn't recognize any of these benefits. At the end, I'm going to give Airbnb a ton of props because these advances, a lot of them came about from their commitment. Like they literally contributed to the React code base to make it a better code base. And a lot of their developers, were saying, yeah, I would use React Native again. Now that I've learned all this, I've gone through the pain. Me personally, one of the things. So I think, in my opinion, I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I know Trimble, my current client. Oh yeah, we've got all these JavaScript developers. They could just start writing mobile, and we're gonna get all this benefit. And, once I started digging into stuff, so my Gradle wasn't I didn't have the right Gradle for something that I was trying to do, and I was like, what is a Gradle, right? I don't know. This is an Android thing, so I'm like, oh, I'm googling, Android Gradle. Oh, okay, it's a build tool. Well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just hacking on it. So at the end of the day, you still need to know the tooling of the platform, or you're just sort of like, you're hacking. And that's exactly what I was doing. So yeah, any other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
So is React Native non-brain development? So what is it? Is JavaScript being passed down to native somehow?
Pardon?
I don't understand. Right? It's not running the browser. How is JavaScript running? It's being passed to native code somehow?
So there is a deploy. You're getting a deployable app that you can put on the store. You can put on Google Play. But there is it is using the Java interpreter, Java runtime on the device to execute. Well, for iPhone as well, or iOS as well. Yes. Now again, I'm not an expert on the underpinnings. Perhaps you have some more insight into that. But that's about as deep as I went into it.
I can't remember the JavaScript engine of iOS and Android. They both use JSC JavaScript core, which is actually kind of the JavaScript engine that WebKit has. Sorry, oh, React Native.
Sounds good.
I've spent way too much of my life thinking about React Native. I love it. I'm with all of these folks that stuff happens all the time, and it's kind of demoralizing. But JSC, so pardon me, but like the last thing I'll say about this is like basically you have this JavaScript thread. You can think of it as a queue to a Node.js thread, even though it's not entirely what's happening. You can think of it as simple. And both on iOS and on Android devices, the JavaScript thread communicates with other native threads that are under your app's control. And some of these other threads, for example, can instantiate native UI elements. So that JSC runtime talks to a process that Facebook wrote in the React Native kind of core modules to instantiate those UI elements. And then that same thing happens, like it passes that back to JavaScript to put up with the Java side. There's a couple of really cool posts. I think there are two from the Airbnb ones that talk to this early. And I'd be happy to talk to folks on that stuff. I spent way too much time thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's all fried in my brain.
Yeah. And so so again, I don't want to just bash. Now, they even say in here React Native is maturing. This blog post was written in June of 18, right? 18? Yeah, I think 18. But 60% of their engineers said they had an amazing experience. 20% were slightly more positive. 63% of them would have chosen React Native again, right? So more than half of them. 74 would consider React Native for a new project, and it is maturing. Yeah, great read. If you're thinking about doing anything React, if your company is thinking about doing anything with React Native, you would be doing your boss a service if you bring this to their attention and talk to them about risk predictability. I know everybody wants a silver bullet. Like I said, been doing this since '98. The silver bullet, the bright shiny object, nothing has changed. I always say, it's the same as, So, yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Awesome. One more item of business before we let you all wrap up. Lemon, come on back up. We have to do the drawing for that NDC ticket.
Yeah. This is actually an overfilling thing.
That's awesome.
So
you've already picked?
No, absolutely not. No.
Hey, how dare you? Hey, I don't mean to besmirch your.
Hey, Brandon.
Hi. All right, let's see what we got here. Evan Neeson Dairy. Woo!
Sorry, I don't know if I should come up. I just got really.
No, you absolutely should. Jason for a long time. Like at least 2 years. Something like that.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Congratulations. Like I said, a whole week. Totally do Detroit Hunt workshop.
Yeah.
It's 2 days with one of the smartest developers ever. Really impressive. And then the conference itself is a couple days. And then PubConf is the best. So right after this, I'm going to get your contact information. And if the rest of you can convince your companies to send you there, you should, because it's great. It's really good. Congratulations.
It is very warm up here. Thanks again to all of our speakers. We've got Lemon, we've got Simon, we've got Shawana, and we've got Mike. Can we get another round of applause for them? Excellent. Thanks for that round of applause to our sponsors as well. Thanks to our sponsors. Johnson, your other organizers are Tamara Temple, Brian Mitchell, Anna Baker, who is not with us tonight, but she's in a much better place. Oh my God, no. Sorry, Anna. She's on vacation in Mexico. She's in a warmer, well, not warmer than up here. But suffice it to say, you all are awesome. Thanks for everything. Hope to see you next month. Less of me talking. Bye.